when I go into a poll, after people hear what I'm saying, I do really well if people think I'm running. Now, one thing is nobody thinks I'm running.
Right.
You think I'm running, right?
Actually, I thought you were running last time, and I do believe that there's some announcements coming. My gut tells me there's an announcement coming in May and June that you're in.
Okay, let's see what happens. Mitt Romney, he blew it. He choked. Something happened to him. That's an election that should have been won.
You think you could have won it?
I would have won it. And frankly, I'm disappointed because I would have done it and I would have won it.
So that was
our first
a month before.
Yeah, celebrity stroll, walking the streets.
That was 18 months ago. 17 months ago, that's when he came down the escalator.
You were an oracle. You called it. Yesterday, I was talking to one of our friends who works here who's way smarter than me, maybe smarter than you, and he's like, oh, I bet Brian Kilmeade. And I was like, who do you think understands America better, you or Brian Kilmeade? Right? And it turns out you did.
Right.
There you go.
In a way, because this guy said this thing's been over for a month.
Yes.
Really? How do you know that? I said every one of these states is within the margin of error. The pollsters are admitting to you they're not positive. Why can't it go in one direction?
You turned out to be right, and really the only one. I mean, there are people in my neighborhood in Northwest D.C. who have no idea Donald Trump has got elected president. They're going to freak out when they wake
Tucker,
up.
how did it happen?
It happened because we didn't understand the country we preside over. And by we, not just the political class in D.C., but anybody with authority or money in the United States who just didn't understand the country and, by the way, didn't care to. That's the thing. People just had their preconceptions about the forces driving this election, about Trump's flaws and Hillary's strengths, and they just kind of went with that. And they never met anybody who disagreed. I mean, when you knew something bizarre was happening was at 5:30 yesterday when the first round of exit polls came out, and it showed that he was outperforming, Trump was outperforming Mitt Romney and John McCain among African-American and Hispanic voters. And you're like, well, wait a second. The one thing we know if we watch television is Trump is a terrible racist and he's going to start a pogrom against Hispanics. Well, he's actually doing better than Mitt Romney did among Hispanic voters, so maybe we're missing this.
But the first round of exit polls ultimately proved to be wrong. And this is much like what happened over in...
But that part was right.
That aspect of it was ultimately it looked like she was actually going to win early on, and that's what all the networks were feeling. By 11 o'clock last night, they were probably going to call it. But it's kind of like our Brexit moment. The polls were wrong. Yes. There were a couple of polls that got it right. Investors Business Daily was right. Rasmussen was right. The USC poll was right.
LA Times.
But the big polls were wrong. The Washington Post, NBC, Wall Street Journal, all wrong.
But the contempt that the people analyzing this election had for anybody with an alternative point of view. I mean, it was like you were denying evolution or something, seriously, because their preconceptions were so strong they couldn't break out of them. But just like Brexit was not about Nigel Farage, as impressive as he is, this is not entirely about Donald Trump. This is a reaction against the people in charge. And look, if you're not in the elite media, if you're not on Wall Street, if you're not in the political class, look at the people who run the country. They sneer at you. They have contempt for you. There's nothing about you that they like. And you resent that after a while. This is a democracy. Like, the average person can vote, we just learned last night.
Well, I'm going to add to that. Celebrities.
Yeah.
Well, every celebrity, whether they're performing with Hillary Clinton, they're going tweeting or campaigning for her, many of which foolishly said they're going to leave the country if he, in fact, wins. Celebrities, instead of being, you might like their album, but you kind of resent the fact that they're in your face telling you what to do. And that's what America did. They went back and said, you're a good actor, you can sing well, I like your music, but I'm not going to take your political advice.
Yeah. I mean, there were a lot of people who were like, you know what, Lena Dunham's for this? I'm not. I'm actually not for this.
They're all leaving the country, too, Tucker.
Well, there's some upside to this. Let me just say, no, look, here's the point.
We might finally lose share.
This is a massive reaction. But I do think this is something that the Trump voters should think about. Every power center in American life is arrayed against Trump. It's there needs to be some kind of reconciliation to some extent, because there's nobody with a hand on the lever of power who was for this. And I'll be really interested to see the reaction this morning. It's not just the Democratic Party. It's not just Hillary.
I don't know what you mean. What do you mean there's no one on the lever of power?
I mean that everybody at the top levels of American business, in finance, in the arts, in academia, I just can't overstate it. They're horrified by this.
Does it remind you of what happened with Ronald Reagan? I was too young, really, when he was around, but I had to do some research for a speech I gave. And I remember reading about him working for GE before he said he was going to run for president. He would go into the Rust States and he would stand on a box and talk to all these union workers, and they all thought, who's this Hollywood elite coming here?
There's no
and then he stood on the box and he was wearing jeans and a cowboy hat, and they all fell in love with him because he was just a man of the people.
I was at the last Reagan rally, actually, that cycle. It was at Del Mar Racetrack in 1980. It's different in this sense. Reagan was a two-term governor of California, and you sort of knew what he thought, and, you know, the elites despised him and sneered at him and thought he was stupid, but in the end, he was a known quantity to some extent because he was a seasoned politician. Donald Trump is the only person in American history not to, you know, lead an army or serve in office before getting elected, and so it does put him in a separate category, and the fear of the unknown is part of this. I mean, part of it is just snobbery and stupidity, and I think that 95% of political analysts should quit and go sell insurance. I think most pollsters should, you know, be in the aluminum siding business, but I do think at the core of it, there is a legitimate worry about, well, what does come next? And I think Trump can fix that.
Tucker, if the control room could put up the map that shows the counties in America that went for Trump.
Right.
From sea to shining sea, it is a sea of red.
That's right.
And Trump is red and Hillary is blue. There's just, it's like a heat map. It represents the anger all across the United States with Washington.
Jessica Tarlov said,
and the way things
red.
are going.
She said
it is crazy red.
Pretty much a total inversion of what that map would have looked like 50 years ago. I mean, the Democratic Party was historically the party of the cities and the farms, right? And now, of course, it's the party of really the suburbs and the coasts. And to some extent, the urban cores. But everything else is Republican. This is a real challenge. Last night in the exit polling, and I think this is true, 97% of people who voted for Hillary Clinton described Donald Trump as scary. And 94% of people who voted for Trump described Hillary as scary. So there really is a real divide here. One of my neighbors just called me last night and said, I'm selling my house.
Well, this
what?
is...
I'm down.
Because of this?
Right. I think
Northwest D.C. is going to... Look, Northwest D.C. is about the business of government. It's about lobbying, of course. It's about, you know, elected office. It's about working at the agencies.
Well, why are they selling their house? Where are they going to go?
I'm just saying the emotional reaction is overwhelming. Right. They know that Trump is a threat to them. Right. To their monopoly on power, and they're really upset.
A lot of people moving out because you're getting your own show in Washington. Let's be honest, Tucker. But the other thing I think is important, there's so much time to analyze. This is what you're going to hear throughout the day. If it wasn't for WikiLeaks, and if it wasn't for Comey, she wins. The other thing that could happen, which is going to be fascinating, since Donald Trump owes so few people so little, he will be free to do whatever the heck he wants to get done. And who knows, his first call might be the people he likes who are on the Democratic side. Or people that work with him on the Republican side. And you might get this thing happening where things get actually done because he's not really dug into party politics.
I think that's a really, really wise point. And to your first point, look, I hate to beat up on people who just lost, and I'm not going to beat up on Hillary. I'm just going to make the obvious point that this is a populist year. We knew that going in. And they nominated an elitist candidate. Doesn't mean she's an evil candidate, but she's certainly not a populist. And they did it because the elites in their party rigged the system. That's what parties exist to do, to rig systems. And they succeeded. The Republicans tried to rig the Republican system, nominating process, and they failed. And Donald Trump became the nominee.
They didn't try to rig it. I think they left it really level, and that forced 17 people to think they actually thought that
Jim Bush raised $125 million before it even started as a way of saying to everyone else, you'd be insane to jump in.
But Reince didn't give him that money.
No, that's true.
Reince is going to be joining us 50 minutes from right now. By the way, in the last 1 minute's worth of soundbiting, we just received word that Hillary Clinton currently is leading with the popular vote. As you can see, she is slightly ahead. It's pretty much 47.6 to 47.6. But obviously, in the Electoral College, she is at 218. He is at 274. Ultimately, if she wins the popular vote, you know, many on the left are going to say, look, she actually won.
Well, but,
Just take a look at that.
Everything is the opposite of what you expected. You expected Hillary to win. You expected Trump to contest the outcome and say it's not legitimate. But actually, it's very likely, certainly possible. She didn't go out last night and address her supporters.
Is that bad?
She didn't.
Well, it's sad because clearly she couldn't face it, right? But it's also bad because you need, symbolically, it's a ritual, and you need to go through closure. I lost. Look at me. I lost. The country needs that, and I hope she will do that.
I couldn't help but think about her staff, though, because you don't ever want anyone to lose their job. What are they all going to do now? Is it easy for them all to get another job in Washington?
You know, that's a great question. I mean, again, the business of Washington is influencing the tax code primarily, but basically influencing the working of government for the benefit of people, and we get rich doing it. And will that continue to the degree it has? Probably not. Lobbyists are weeping this morning. I'm not joking.
But by the way, Ainsley, keep in mind, as President Obama told us 8 years ago, elections have consequences.
So there you go.
Have to look at the rest
This
of
one
it.
has big consequences.
The consequence for you being on this couch is you have wound up, as Brian mentioned earlier, with a brand new show. It's going to start Monday night. It's called Tucker Carlson Tonight.
What will we talk about? It's like, we'll be in D.C. I'll be the only person left in the city.
Yeah, because you've always been at a loss for words, right?
All right. Tucker, thank you very much.
Congratulations, Tucker.
Thank you, as always, Ainsley.
Love you.
You can tell he was up late. He's prying open a coffee right now.
We're still on TV. Sorry, excuse me.
It's also pretty clear that he likes Ainsley better than both of us.
I do. Like America does.
Unbelievable.
Make yourself at home, Tucker.
All right.